Small group leaders and small group teams, we are so excited that you are watching this and taking part in the Seeing Clearly series. We are excited to bring this to you as we have been praying through a new vision statement here at Olivet and wanting it to really dig down deep, not only for our church as a whole, but also you individually. And so we thought the best way to really get behind that to start is by spending some time to share our stories collectively, now what you're going to be doing in your groups. We did that on Sunday morning, and so if you didn't join us, you can check that out on our YouTube channel to see that sermon. But for your group, as you sit down right now, we wanted to spend some time and ask some really key questions on the stories that you share and who the hero of your story is. I know for me personally, before coming to Jesus, I was the hero of my own story. At 16, I thought I had the world wrapped around my finger, and I thought that if I just smiled and could be a little manipulative and tell everybody exactly what they wanted to hear, that would win me friends and influence people. And Jesus showed me very clearly that's not really how to live. He called me to die to myself and all of my own interests to follow him and be a disciple of his. And so that was convicting for me, and that led me to take these steps of faith that have led to this point. So each of us have a different story. We're going to share a little bit of that here and kind of lead you in through what your group will be doing next. So
I'll go next. Most of my upbringing was in a Baptist church. And I have nothing bad to say about that church or my upbringing at all. But somehow, even though I'm sure that this isn't what they said or intended to say, I felt two things all the time. Number one, I felt this incredible weight of guilt. I felt like I could never measure up to God's standard. And at the same time, I was told that I should want and pursue heaven. And those two things never made sense. How does an imperfect person ever get to heaven? And I know that the gospel was shared. I know that I responded to the gospel in my own way. In fact, many, many times. But for me, the light really came on when I realized that what I was not doing was being willing to put my own life aside so that I could receive the life that Jesus had for me. And I explained that in the morning service more in depth. But just to say that my story pivots on that willingness to set my life aside and receive the life that Jesus offered me.
Pastor Craig said he couldn't say anything bad about his church. I can't either. I grew
what
up.
church is that?
Yeah,
where'd you go?
So I grew up at Olivet, and one of the things that we talked about Sunday is we are united not by a same story of how we grew up, but we're united in Jesus. And I hope that's, as you guys discuss this, I hope that's what you see, is that Jesus is the common factor for us. And no matter how we came to him, we're united in him, and we get to unite deeper and deeper with people that are different than us when Jesus is the center. So for me, I did grow up in this church, and at an early age, my brother and sister at 3 actually told me about Jesus. I received him because I didn't want to go to hell. I wanted to go to heaven and be with them and with Jesus. But so early on in childhood, I had a pretty good understanding. At 8, I got deeper in that. But also early on, when I was 3, I had an accident to my right eye that left me legally blind. And then in 4th grade, I had a parasite get into my good eye. And during that time, which that ended up leaving me with limited vision, going to specialists for about 3 years. During that time, God just had control of my life, and I had to submit to him and trust that he knew what was going on. I had a family that supported me and pointed me to Jesus in that time, and I had a church that helped me with that. And so for me, my story, it was like, where else am I going to turn? Right. And God used that to help me to just see him clearly, and then be able to help others to see him clearly in difficulties. So a different story, but one that we all see the same Jesus.
Yeah, I'll go next. I was saved at 8 days old. I was Lutheran and baptized. I'm totally joking. It's not true. But I grew up in the Lutheran church. I don't know a specific date when I came to faith. I just know that I've been the benefactor of God's relentless and faithful pursuit of sinners. Amen. And so I know I believed at a young age, I remember that, and then at some point in early teens kind of realized, oh wait, I should have a relationship with this God that believed, and even in that, even though I had a relationship, it was kind of this back and forth, who's in control, what's going on, and it probably wasn't until 21 years old when I finally realized that my plan wasn't working, and that in this relationship I needed to relinquish myself and my plan to him and to what he had for my life. And so he swept me along on this journey, and even in that, my story isn't I finally relinquished and everything shed away. It's a constant battle against the world and calamity and sin and brokenness, and so a learning and growing and learning and growing and learning and growing, and so I guess in my life some of the most frustrating times are when I feel like I'm not growing. But I remember this specific time when God told me that I needed other people to do it, and he used this phrase from a book. The line is, a coal away from the fire never burns long. And so he had brought me back to Muskegon, back to my home, back to this church, where I began to sharpen and grow with the people around me. And I think that's, again, there's one hero in each of our stories, how we got here. But the fact that the hero in our story uses the other people he's brought to himself to bring us along into faith and growth, and that's kind of what's been the highlight of my story, is that he showed me he's the hero, but he's going to use us to do it, to bring the hero into other people's stories. And so hopefully you guys can see how you are helping one another and how the people around you are helping you to grow into Jesus.
So as you guys have now caught a little taste of our stories, it's time to share your own. And even though if you've done this 10 times or 100 times, we encourage you to do it again, because even in hearing these guys share their story, there are more information and more bits and pieces that we get to learn from each other and really celebrate God's faithfulness and God's pursuit of us, and really unite around what Jesus has done for us on the cross. So we look forward to hearing stories about how well and what great time you guys had in small groups. So at this time, you can turn to your leaders and go through the questions that have been provided. We hope you guys have a great time, and we will see you next week. All right, take care, guys. Bye-bye.